gonna need a
Watching all your emails.
Elevated, man. You're going up to the. Oh, you coming back down?
You come back down.
Thought you had to change office. I said, he's going up. Going up. My fine people.
You're live. I've got a year to change it.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is now 4 o'clock. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Richland County Council Budget Work Session for May 5th, rather, 2022. It is now 4 p.m. And this meeting, if you don't mind, would you just take the roll?
Malinowski. Hugh. McBride.
Here.
Livingston. Here. Teratio. Joe Walker. Barron.
Here.
Paul Walker.
Present.
Mackey.
Here.
English. Newton.
I actually see Ms. Newton online, so she's attending virtually, and I believe Mr. Pugh said he would be running late this afternoon, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, and so this is the, well, first of all, adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Move to properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk, take the vote, please.
Malinowski. McBride.
Yes.
Barron.
Yes.
Paul Walker.
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
And Newton.
Yeah.
Motion approved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So this is the third and final work session for this budget season. This afternoon, I believe there will be a presentation from staff on millage agencies, enterprise funds, and if I'm not mistaken, I think is it the solid waste collection contracts as well? And so, Mr. Brown, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to be very brief because you did it again on me. You're correct. That would be the order of the presentations. So we're going to turn it over to the Budget Director, Mr. Abi Deshpande. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I try.
So good afternoon, Mr. Chair and the members of the council. For the record, Abi Deshpande, Budget Director. So today we are going to talk about millage agencies and enterprise fund. So the plan is first I will talk briefly about the millage agencies and their budget request, and then airport department, and then after Director Maloney and Director Davies will take over for the solid waste and the utilities budget requests. So for the millage agency that you see on your screen, we out of the 7 millage agencies that we have, we received all but so far only one Richland County School District 2. We have not received their budget request formally. However, as you can see that for all of the agencies or majority of the agencies, they have requested to the mill cap level their budget requests. For example, Richland County Recreation Commission, they requested $16,063,900, which correlates to the mill cap rate that we received from the auditor's office. Columbia Area Mental Health, their request is $2.5484 million. Again, that is equal to their mill cap number. Richland County Public Library, their request is $30.868 million, which again goes back to the mill cap rate. Riverbank Zoo, their request is actually at the no mill increase level, which is $2.574 million. Midland Stick is requesting more than their mill cap on the operating and the capital side. So that's the only outlier in this group. Richland County School District 1, they requested at the no mill increase level. Their number is $239,797,217. Any questions on the millage agency's budget request before we move further?
Questions from the body?
Mr. Chair.
All right, Ms. Mackey, you recognize, and then after Ms. Mackey, Ms. McBride.
Thank you. Just a question about the Columbia Area Mental Health and in the school district. So you said that Richland 2 did not submit, but the other 2 did, but on the spreadsheet, it's not there. So is that, will this be updated?
Yeah,
just
that's
for public
right.
record or?
And yeah, that's right. Sorry
Okay.
about that. So I just received the Columbia Mental Health and the Richland School District 1 just like a few hours back. So it wasn't updated on your presentation. Sorry about that.
What was the deadline to submit these?
They were due yesterday or day before yesterday, yeah. On May 3rd. Yeah.
May 3rd?
Yeah, May 3rd.
Thank you.
Also, before you take the floor, Ms. McBride, just want to recognize Councilman Derek Pugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize for my tardiness.
No apologies needed. Just glad you made it here safely. You recognize Ms. McBride.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for comments, I think that almost every year I ask the same question. In terms of the millage agency, and this is a question for the viewing public, we have no responsibility other than approving the budget, the total amount, because we don't see the individual budgets. We only approve the amount. So it's almost like a pass-through coming for Richland County to sign off on. And I'm not sure of our true responsibilities based on law in terms of how we approve these budgets. So can anyone help me?
And maybe I will have maybe Ms. ACA Thomas to chime on that, but you're right that we don't receive their line item budget request is really about the bottom line number that we approve here.
And I want the public to understand this.
Recognize Ms. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, council members. Yes, that is correct. Basically, this is a pass-through, and we can inform you what their millage cap is. To request over the millage cap, I will go back to the auditor to find out what that would require from a political perspective, because that would be in excess of Act 388. It could be clawback millage that they're calculating.
Follow-up question,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair. Where we have a no mill increase, is that the money, the amount that we are obligated to give to the millage agencies?
That is the amount of money that they would receive based upon current existing ordinances and requirements according to the millage applied to them. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then the mill cap.
Excuse me, can I get clarification?
Yes, Mr. Malinowski.
You gave a lengthy answer, but I think the question was a yes, no. Are we required to give that amount or not?
Yes, sir. That is their millage.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So when we go to the mill cap, then that's a discretionary procedure that we have in terms of whether we're going to allow the agencies to go to the mill cap.
That would be your recommendation. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what is the impact on the county's budget if we go beyond the no mill increase? What's the impact of that?
Millage agencies have no impact on the county budget because the county has its own millage.
So when I say county budget, I'm speaking about taxpayers' money.
Anything above the no mill increase will increase the amount that is paid on taxes for that prospective part of the budget of the county taxpayer.
So when we go to the mill cap, then that affects the taxpayers' amount of money the taxpayers are paying.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to be clear for maybe the new members already know and for our citizens.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Additional questions or discussion? And before we move on, I'd like to recognize some special guests that we have in the gallery, or in the chamber rather, this afternoon. I see Dr. Harry Miley out here, who's representing Richland School District 2 this afternoon. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Miley. I also see Dr. Craig Witherspoon, who's the superintendent for Richland District 1, as well as Commissioner Angela Clyburn for School Board Richland District 1. Do we have anyone else here this afternoon from our millage agencies? Then there's also Ms. Williams, Ms. Tamika Williams, the director for Richland County Recreation Commission. Good afternoon to you as well. Did I miss anybody? All right. Okay. Well, we can continue on.
Yes. So moving on to the airport, as you can see on the first slide is about their revenue projections. Total revenue projections for FY23 is $581,724, including use of fund balance $10,878. There is a $270,846 transfer in from the general fund that is projected for the airport operations. On moving on the expenditure side, just balancing with the revenue, the total requested amount was $581,724. Administration recommended the same amount to the council. That's concludes the airport as well. If you have any question on the airport fund.
Questions or discussion from the body regarding the airport? All right, there being none, continue on.
Perfect. So that concludes my presentation, and then I will have Director Maloney and Director Davis taking over from.
Before we get to Director Maloney, Madam Vice Chair, I believe, wants to be recognized. So you are recognized.
Thank you. Just one more question about it. I know you stated the due date was May 3rd, and you have the other two that you mentioned. The final one, will you be sending us an updated once you receive just
Yes, that's right.
beforehand so we can look at that?
So hopefully, my understanding is their internal budget process has been not done, as well as the state portion is also not finished yet. So that's why the late was. But I'm hoping that you will have the final numbers prior to the second reading. And as soon as I have the numbers, I will send it to the council.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Bill Davis, Richland County Utilities Director. And we're here to briefly go over our budget for the year. And you'll see we're trying to show you some of the information. Some of you are new. And we want to make sure that you see what we do at Richland County Utilities to provide sewer and water for the unincorporated areas of Richland County that we serve. So next slide, please. I think you all know we're an enterprise fund, and that basically means the majority of our money comes from our ratepayers. And we didn't have any rate increases. We do rate studies about every 5 years. We haven't had rate increases for about 9 years until 2019. We've had 3 in a row, and we did delay those a little bit with the COVID, the effect of COVID. And so now we feel like we're in a good place. We do feel like that our neighbors will be raising rates in the very near future because they did not do that raise like we just did. And I think that we'll be in a really good place, and they'll be looking to try to get some rate increases to get in for these increasing prices. We're seeing prices going up 200 to 300% in a lot of cases. So next slide, please. Wanted to show our area. I showed this the other night, but I want to make sure it's really clear because it really ties in quickly to my message about what we need. Our systems are completely separated, and you would see the 2 pink areas or pink, purple, lavender, whatever that is, southeast and northwest. And we have 2 specific, I was just trying to be politically correct with the coloring scheme there.
Thank you.
The Eastover Wastewater Treatment Plant is our newest area where we've got new assets down in the southeast. And in the northwest, we have another larger treatment plant. And majority of our staff is located in the northwest, excuse me. And with the addition of these staff down in southeast, we're seeing that distance of 1 hour becoming an issue, which I'll go into in a moment. So next. This is just quickly some contact information. I think you all know me and our Deputy Director, Johnny Hussein, and Jessica Mancini, who is my right arm, and the Manager of Administration, and she is here with us today. I'm gonna point her out and embarrass her in front of everybody. She, if you ever get anything back from me and it's really good, it came from her. And how long did I have, ACA Thomas, is an hour? Is that what you said? Oh, no, I'm kidding. Next slide, please. Back up one. Okay, no, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah, there you go. All right, so our staffing, I wanted to go through this. I'm not going to go into all the detail, but the white boxes are vacancies. The majority of the vacancies are in our maintenance department, which I'll explain in a moment. And the peachy color there, sorry, Vice Chair Mackey, I don't know what color that is, but it looks like peach. And those are what we're asking for new positions. So if you look at those positions, we're actually already filling one of the operator positions. So out of our staff, we're about 90%, which is well ahead of the game. We are staffing up. And I think one of the things I did want to point out is the diversity. I know Mr. Brown talked about diversity in a report to council last year, and those numbers are on your bottom right there. And all of our numbers are going in the right direction. We're getting more women and more people of color at the Richland County Department of Utilities, and we're proud of that culture that we have and the diversity that we share. Next slide. I won't go into all those numbers, but I did want to say one thing really quick because it kind of puts it in perspective. If you talk about how many miles of sewer line we have, it's 330 miles. So if I laid those pipes side by side on the roads from Irmo, South Carolina to Nashville, Tennessee, that's how far we get. I just wanted to point out how much we actually have. So next slide. This is our water system. We have 1 elevated tank, about 600 customers, most of which are down in the southeast, and a few bulk customers in the northwest. And we'll go into water in a workshop here in the near future, but right now we're holding steady on the water. Next. I won't go into these, but I wanted to highlight critical objectives number 1 and number 2 because they're very important to me. I hope that each of you have heard or have seen or experienced the great customer service and responsiveness that we have at Richland County Utilities. Also, our culture of inclusiveness and diversity is something I'm very proud of. That's something we treat each other like family, and we really enjoy coming to work. We really enjoy laughing together and working hard together. And the other things that you see in bold will be the things that I'll go into with how we're going to solve those problems. But those are the things we're struggling with. And the other things we're doing pretty well on. So if you go to the next slide. Again, these are just for your information. These are the objectives that we are achieving with Richland County Utilities. I wanted you to see them, and I didn't want them to be undermined by not at least giving you that information. Next slide. So biggest problem we have right now is we've added an entire system with miles and miles of sewer and water lines. And about, if you boil it down, about 26% increase in assets and infrastructure. And if you put that in a ratio perspective, that's about 8 new employees. If you boiled it down to what we have now versus what we need. So go to the next slide. I'm going to go through just the bold points because I'm trying to save time, and also Ms. Thomas threatened me. So I'm going to be very short. To accomplish this, we've got people that are working long hours, and they're working a lot of overtime, and they got low wages, and they're getting wages up to twice what we're paying them to go to the private sector. And with that kind of a rotating door, the only way to solve that is to get our people to a livable wage. I think council is heading in the right direction to do that. And I'm very proud that we are presenting that today, I guess, or over the last few weeks. And we're hoping that that helps. And the other thing would be to add 5 new positions, not 8, like I talked about earlier. I think we can get away with 2 operators, 2 maintenance staff, and 1 equipment operator. We need an additional operator at Eastover because we have increased the flow by about 29%. And actually multiple times, but I'm talking about the rating of the plant. We've also got 2 maintenance staff that we need to dedicate to the Southeast so they're not traveling an hour down and an hour back and wasting what basically would be 25% of their day going back and forth. And so 1 equipment operator, right now it's very hard to find a commercial driver's license for the fees that we're paying. So we're creating a new position that's equitable to the industry standards for CDL licenses. And complying with regulatory agencies very quickly, we have a system that I inherited, first of all, that has a lot of areas where we have bottlenecks. And those bottlenecks are like we talked about the other night, where I've got the malfunction junction where everything wants to come into one place and it increases the pressure, which causes backups and other issues within the system. In order for us to alleviate that, we have to create what we're calling capacity enhancing projects. Those projects will release the pressure in the collection system so that we can comfortably maintain those those customers without causing failures and regulatory issues. So next slide. The staff need tools. The tools they need so we can do things in-house. And if we do things in-house, we can save money because right now everything is costing exponentially more than it used to cost for us to pay a third party to do it. And also, they don't respond in the timeliness that we expect for the level of service for our customers because they don't work for Richland County. If they work for Richland County, they're going to respond faster and we're going to get things done. And so we want some equipment. We want heavy equipment so we can do our own pipe assessments. We can do our own construction projects. We can do a lot of this work ourselves. The next thing is preventative maintenance. I'm sorry. The preventive maintenance. We need to have the staff located where they need to be, but we need some facilities for them to be housed in. So the Southeast is lacking a place for our people to go and store equipment, supplies. So we're going to need a new storage facility at Eastover Wastewater Plant. And the water tank that we have now, I mentioned earlier, we have 1 tank. We need 2 tanks because we need to be able to take 1 tank down and clean it and maintain it and bring the other tank up. And also we need that tank for pressure distribution throughout the system to equalize the pressure throughout our system. And so we do need to add a water tank, and that's an immediate need. Next slide. All of this can be accomplished for the low price of those 3 pink items up there. We have the first pink item on the top graph that shows the addition for staff, which would be the cost of living adjustment, and the 5 additional personnel that would be added so that we're asking for that increase. And then The other change would be a lowering of the sewer operating, which would boil down to professional services being reduced by about $81,733.60 to get us to a net balanced budget. And also the last thing, the number down at the bottom, we made some adjustments because we had an increase in our rates, which caused the numbers to go up from what you had previously. We also weren't accounting for bulk customers, and we weren't accounting for some customers that were in non-payment. And all those reasons are over to the side, but the non-payment, we've alleviated that by council's approval of us being able to cut off customers who are not paying. And so now we're seeing customers paying their rates, and that's keeping us in the black. So that's about it. So next slide, any questions?
You're saying that you're going to generate revenue for those new additional positions?
Yes, sir, we have revenue.
Malinowski.
Hey, Mr. Chair. Director Davis, these needs that you have listed on page 12, my colleagues won't know what's page 12 because you didn't number them, but it's the one right before the requested changes.
Yes, sir.
Are those figures hidden somewhere in your operating numbers, or can we get those anyway from you separately so we know? Is that it above and beyond these costs you've given us?
Oh, no, sir. It's inclusive.
It's inclusive.
And some of that equipment, if you look up there, that some of that equipment, oh, no, it's not actually. We do have numbers for the equipment. And first of all, the CCTV is one that you'll be seeing in the A&F committee. Next A&F committee meeting, we will bring those larger items will come before council for approval.
All these boldened items that says we need, that's all going to come to us separately?
And as far as the storage building and the water tank, those will be separate design and build construction.
I'm looking at the backhoe and the truck.
Oh, those will all be separate if they're more than $100,000. Yes, sir.
Okay, so none of that is in these figures?
It's in the figures.
It is in the figures?
It's in the figure, yes, sir.
That's okay. And then down below where you have projected increase of 2.45 million?
Yes, sir. That's adjustment in the revenue.
Right, that's what's, you're projecting, that's how much more will come in this year.
Yes, sir.
So your deficit up above as far as your personnel would be covered by that?
Yes, sir.
And still have a surplus?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Also want to recognize our colleague, Cheryl English, who is now attending this work session virtually. And good afternoon to you, Councilwoman English. I think she's muted.
I am. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone.
And Ms. Newton, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And some of my questions may have been covered a little bit in my colleagues' previous questions, but again, just looking at the revenue to cover this, your request, these requests are covered without additional rate increases to our customers?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Recognize Ms. Bryant.
In terms of livable wages, and I'm a strong supporter of higher wages for county employees. Is that different? And I'll address this to maybe Mr. Brown, maybe that. Is that different from the recommendations that the county is making, Mr. Brown, for the other staff?
They are not different. I think he's just independently acknowledging that information.
Thank you.
Additional questions or discussion? All right. Thank you, Director Davis.
Thank you. Under an hour.
Within your hour.
Oh, I do have one last.
You recognize Mr. Malinowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Davis, you don't have to come up here. Just make a note, please. I'd like to see the numbers of what the cost will be, even if it doesn't exceed 100,000 for those two pieces of equipment, and where you plan on getting them.
Director Maloney.
Yes, sir.
You're recognized.
Thank you, sir. Well, thank you for allowing me to speak. I just want to say the process was outstanding this year and working with our administration, and I want to thank them for allowing us to present to you as well. So thank you. I just want to let Director Davis know we have 850 miles of roadway, so forget about that.
How far will that get us?
We are in competition, and that's always good. I have with me our General Manager of Solid Waste and Recycling, John Ansel. I'm Mike Maloney, Director of Public Works. First thing we wanted to cover was just the services, and it becomes more important to understand the services and how they're broken apart, because there are two funding sources, and it became important to me at least to know how those services being collected by different groups of people are being monitored by us. Collections, we have staffing of a manager, one collections control inspector, one customer service rep, 2 temporary customer service reps, a data control analyst, and 3 roll cart technicians. That is one area, and that is the one area in the budget book, and it is included in everything you see as our projections, our rates, our expenses. What's in the budget book includes additional staff that we had requested to be in those budgets. And I don't have them listed here, but I'm going to explain them because they are all in collections. Where we indicate we have one customer service representative. For quite a long time, Solid Waste and Recycling has been hiring temporary employees to try to fill those roles. And it has been agonizing to keep people in that, not being part of the full-time employment with the county. So we were requesting 3 customer service reps to join the one we have. So it does take 4 to operate that customer service area. And the other thing is collection inspectors. So these are the eyes and ears in the field. They're monitoring entailing the collections contractors. They're verifying that the collection contractors are tagging anything that they deem as non-compliant. And then they're verifying that is actually non-compliant or having them go back and pick it up. And that's something we've been missing in the county, that we don't have adequate coverage to do that. And we're asking for 6 inspectors in our budget. So we have 2, and we need 6 more to actually cover the county. In that collections area, we have 8 collection contracts, 1 a commercial contract, and 1 fleet system contract. Up at the landfill, the C&D landfill, owned by Richland County, we have a grinding contract for folks that bring out various wood product. And then we have a professional service contract with engineering. We also have two areas in the landfill that are closeout areas, and we have duties and obligations and staffing assigned to that. We also staff and fund the refuse control code enforcement. We currently have 3 positions for that area right now, and 3 to 4 is adequate. And then we have a customer service department, which I described before, which is really part of collections. We also have the recycled drop centers. So we have a full service one up at the landfill off of Monticello Road. We have just a recycling center on Clemson Road, and then kind of we call the 3/4 bath. It's not quite full service down in Lower Richland, down by Bunkies. And the reason I say that, there's not enough space to take mattresses and other things at that site. And that site has some other problems we identified, and that will be part of our presentation. So in that, we have 2 lease agreements. We'd like to drop at least one of those this year, 5 recycling contracts and 1 hauling contract. So when you hear about the big contracts we've been discussing with the council over the past months, and we also have a contractor that's separately contracted to go out and empty those dumpsters, both the ones with the county and then the ones with the drop-off centers, 2 separate contracts with that. And then, of course, special services. I didn't identify special services staff in here because they are funded by the landfill millage, but there's no change as far as what they're looking for budget, but that has the community service, inmate labor, clamshell operators that help with illegal dumping and picking up roadside litter with that. So next slide is our collections and millages services. Just kind of a part of it, I should say. In collections, we're talking about all those contracts. There's 8 of them. Right now, it's amongst 4 different contractors, and it's been in the recent years about $28 million a year for literally just picking up roadside garbage, recycling, yard waste, and bulk items to get it from one place to the next, which is, the disposal site. The millage, which is different than collections, because in the collections we have a little over 90,000 customers, which is the unincorporated Richland County and the town of Blythewood. The other towns, cities in Richland County have their own collections. The millage, however, is a countywide tax. So anybody who lives in Richland County pays that. And for that, they are able to use the landfill and the drop centers. And so I'm giving you an idea here of, what do we pay for the landfill disposal costs, $3.1 million. That's not just what our garbage trucks tip, that's what Columbia's garbage trucks tip and so on. So the reason it's a countywide millage, it's a countywide cost. So we pay for the entire county's landfill costs and take in the county's landfill revenue. County C&D operation up at Monticello Road, both its staffing and its operation is about $2 million a year. The drop centers are about $1.3 million a year. Capital equipment, we try to reserve about $1 million a year. We just did the gas extraction system at the landfill, different projects that come up or large pieces of equipment, compactors, large scale bulldozers, that's in that capital area. And then there's the county C&D landfill closeout, and that runs about $840,000 a year. Management overall as a group is $1.2 million a year, and special services at about $1.1 million a year.
Tony, let me just interrupt you for a second. I would like to acknowledge our colleague, Allison Terracio, who is present. Good afternoon to you, Councilwoman.
Thank you. Sorry I was late.
No apologies needed. Continue on.
Thank you, sir. I just want to touch on the CPI effect. So I mentioned calendar years because essentially the revenue from solid waste comes in at the end of the year, once a year. It's kind of mid our fiscal year. So I have to look at that. And then all our contracts are tied to CPI. So it's really important what's going on with inflation. And I have to look at that and add it up between rate increases because our revenue is not really going to change. Sure, you'll have growth, but so do expenses grow. So if the rate doesn't go up with CPI as far as customer rates, then we're going to be losing more money that way. So I look at since the last rate increase, and so that's why I mentioned the year before it was 1.4%. This past January it was 7.0%. And then right now, just to see what's going on, March to March, it's at 8.5%. So since we've had a rate increase, expenses just on those contracts has gone up about $3 million. So there's the next page I can just quickly mention because it's the contracts that are affected by CPI. All the ones in dark green or green on that page are the collections contracts we've been working on. The others are related to, say, Liberty Tire, Powerhouse, and then down in the indefinite delivery, 9 Lives and EcoFlow. Those are our recycling disposal sites for various commodities. that aren't part of the household recycling that goes to Sunoco. We had the hauling contracts, as I mentioned before, with CWS to go to the drop centers to get those to the various locations for C&D disposal. The dumpsters owned by the county is picked up by Waste Management. And then we have, of course, the tipping fee that I mentioned is a countywide expense with the Waste Management landfill. And then the recycling with Sunoco. So those are the various contracts that they follow that CPI and they'll go up and down on it. The other slide, next slide, is the effect of fuel surcharge. Our new contracts that we're working on eliminate the fuel surcharge, but we're still under fuel surcharge right now. All but one. We negotiated and we're underway on area 1. 4 others are very close. Effective fuel surcharge. 4 of the 8 contracts right now are paying out above what we're charging our customers because of fuel surcharge. Fuel surcharge this year has added 13% to our contracts. So when I talked about CPI at 8.5%, now we have another 13% with the fuel surcharge being added. The new contracts, again, eliminate that. And go ahead, ma'am.
Just for a second, Director Maloney, Ms. Newton, you recognize, and then Ms. McBride.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Maloney, I just wanted to make sure that I'm understanding this correct. This slide that you have here. So we have a negotiated contract rate with our vendors, and you're saying that for half of them, we are paying more than our contracted terms say because of the addition of the fuel surcharge?
Thank you, ma'am. The statement is that on half of them, 4 of them, we're paying out more than we're collecting from our customers on an annual basis.
Thank you.
Okay. So
Thank you. Just to add to that, could you explain exactly what the fuel surcharge is?
Yes, ma'am. It's a surcharge that's based on it was based on a baseline of $3.50 a gallon for diesel fuel.
$3.80.
$3.80. Okay.
Yes,
At $3.80 or below, there's no charge for fuel, but it was something that the contractors had in their prior contracts to protect them if fuel prices went high. And they get an added fee. So the more it goes up, the more that fee goes up. And so right now we're at a 13% tier, paying that much more per unit.
On, Director.
Thank you, sir. Okay. So the next slide is the proposed change. And I go through the areas where I have to separate the two. I wanted to get it to separate the 2 revenues because they affect, again, different people in involvement. So basically curbside management, collections, and tipping. We look at the amount of tipping we're doing with just our curbside collection, and we kept those groups together, then looked at non-curbside management, recycling, the landfill, its closure, special services, and the unincorporated or incorporated area tipping, and that came to a different number. So if you look down below that, we just have 2 lines, $33,768,000 for the separate curbside program, and then the millage costs of 7.73. When you look to the right at revenue, it shows what the projected revenue is for those 2 areas, and then to the right of that in parentheses, meaning a deficit, showing the amount of deficit. Under rate, I'm showing the amount of rate adjustment that would be required to eliminate the deficit. So 8.3 on collections and 5.6 on millage. The next page. The next page.
You recognized.
Yes.
Sorry about that, Director Maloney. Mr. Racia.
Thank you. You all looked into if there's a rate increase needed, the effect on like your average customer?
Yes, ma'am. That'll be coming up.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Newton, you recognized.
Ms. Terratio asked my question. Thank you.
You're on, Director.
All right, thank you, sir. Revenue adjustment, and that breaks it down. So I have some other numbers to turn that into what's the monthly increase and annual increase. But the numbers are there. Existing collection rates, curbside is currently $323.70 for the year, and proposed is $350.57 per year. That's over the year, that's a $26.87 increase. Over the month, that's a $2.24 increase. So a lot of people right now, what's the rate, Mr. Ansel? It's 26.97 curbside. So just under 27. So 29.21 would be the monthly rate. Interestingly, backyard service is currently $631.21, and that would drop by 18 cents to $631.03. Not sure how that happened over all the years, but we're following the ordinance of 1.8 multiplier, just like we're doing in all our new contracts. So our costs are at 1.8, our revenue and our charge on our customers should be at 1.8, and that puts the backyard service just a hair lower than it's currently at.
Director Maloney.
Yes, sir.
Up to you. Alski.
Director Maloney, you're saying that we're following a 1.8% ordinance increase here.
Right, sir, 1.8 multiplier.
So I don't get how 1.8% of the existing backyard service only equates to that proposed amount versus the existing curbside and that proposed amount you're getting. Certainly the proposed amount of 1.8% on a higher dollar amount would bring a higher dollar amount. So I don't see how you're only 18 cents, how you're reducing it by 18 cents.
Right. Let me just go over it real quick. The curbside service planned is $350.50. So that's based on the rate adjustments I was showing on the previous slide. Then we take that times a 1.8 multiplier. So, not quite 2 times more expensive, but 1.8 times more expensive. And that 1.8 times more expensive gives the 631.03. In the past, it appeared to be more than 1.8 multiplier, where it was 323.70 and 631.21. And we are finding that in the collections contracts of the past as well, that some of them were at 2.5 and some were at 1.8.
So are you creating this new rate by making retroactive adjustments?
This would be when the rates go into effect, any new customers and the big collection period in November, December, January would be at these new rates.
All right, I'd like to get with you or see that in more detail, because trying to flip back and forth on these 2 pages, I'm really not following this. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Brad, you recognized.
Mr. Maloney, exactly what does the backyard services do?
They're folks that have a deed restriction that required they can't have their trash cans out on the street. And that was accepted when they had their plats approved so that they would get special backyard pickup. And so it's going to a lot of them have like a decorative wall and then next to the garage with the trash cans back there. And so it means that, even if you're automating, there'd be and now they have to go back and put the carts back there. So they have to come and pick them up next to the garage, bring them to the street, and then take them back there and put them back in that position. So that's what the extra charge is.
Pretty good. I have to roll mine up to the corner, roll it back down, and I'm on a hill. So that's pretty nice.
We do have one other service, and Mr. Ansel will be going over a larger rate sheet with you, but that, we do have for folks that have disabilities to get to the street, they have backyard service, as they call it, getting it from the garage and bringing it out. And that's at the base rate, just like every other customer.
Follow-up question.
Sure.
Does this include, and I know I've received numerous calls, well, a few from constituents, senior citizens or people with disabilities. they need that backyard services, is that additional cost for them too, or is there special?
That when they have that, and the requirement to just regulate that is, that they bring in a certificate signed by their doctor indicating as such. And Mr. Ansell's been going through that process with customers. So the other problem was we were finding out a lot of people no longer either needed it or they moved and that service was still being provided. So we're auditing that every year to make sure that the people still need it. We do get some temporary requests where somebody just had surgery and they may only need it for 6 months or 3 months and they request that. And so that has an expiration to it. And then sometimes like years later, we'll find out they said they had it, but we find out it was only a
There's not
request.
additional costs
No
for those
additional
special.
costs.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Livingston and then Ms. Mackey.
You know, previously, I mean, in a couple of back slides, when you talk about the tipping fee, you were referring to the fee for the landfill?
Yes, sir.
Is
So-
that fee increasing or decreasing? That
Well,
amount?
that goes up by 5% every year, or CPI every year.
Okay, good. I hope so. Yeah. And then you mentioned about the 5 contracts of recyclables. What's happened to recyclables now? I remember a time when folks actually paid us.
We are in that time right now. Well, at least with one of them. So where our collections contractors dump their household recyclables at Sunoco off of Bluff Road. We were paying, just a little over a year ago, some $600,000 a year for that. And that was just due to the fact that there was no good price in plastic and we were having trade problems with China and things like that. Now, this past year, it went to where we are getting paid. Again, Mr. Ansel, do you know where we are on that right now?
Currently, when we were seeing the best of the market earlier this year and towards the end of last year, the recycling market is beginning to level out again. Those revenues are starting to decrease, but we're still in a positive place with that. If we were to hold at 0 or +1, we're happy. And in your question about the additional recycling contracts, we recycle waste tires. We recycle electronic waste. We have recycling for mattresses. We do household hazardous waste, latex paints. We do fluorescent bulbs, oil, cooking oil, and we have several others out there, but just to give you a general idea of what we do.
Mackey and then Ms. Newton.
Thank you. Director Maloney, just to confirm, to make sure I understand, so the proposed rates that you have here in the proposed landfill millage, these numbers are already included in the budget book for your requested, or
No, ma'am. The budget book is coming in at, and I have a reduction in the budget book by $500,000. But with that said, we're at $40,500,000. I'm just going to read the big numbers, and the revenue projected is at 38. Currently, with the rates as they are today, $38,500,000. So we're projecting to balance the books. We would need an 8.3% curbside collection rate increase. And then that rate to the right for the millage is a 5.6% rate increase.
Thank you.
Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So looking at the requested increase in rates that you have, we understand, and in my area, we certainly understand how important garbage and solid waste and yard waste pickup is and how much we need that staff. My question, and it may not be for you, it may be for legal, is as we look at where we are right now, understanding that this is an enterprise fund, still, are there other opportunities where other funds might be able to be used to help supplement this gap, if not long-term, perhaps on a one-time basis, besides going to customers for a rate increase?
Ms. Newton, this is County Administrator Leonardo Brown. I did tap the county attorney. He passed it to me. The answer to your question is yes. This is an enterprise. This is an enterprise fund, but you are not restricted from using all other sources. So, for example, and I'll just use this one, you could use general fund dollars in support of this. The idea is that it supports itself, but you could use other sources. Thank you, ma'am.
Additional
Thank you.
questions
And
or
again,
discussion? I'm sorry, Ms. Newton. Continue on.
oh no, I was just going to say again, I appreciate the needs of the department, and also just acknowledge that in some areas we're in a tough spot where, because of the performance of our contractors, people aren't receiving the services at the level that they're supposed to receive them, which makes it extra tough to go and say, let's increase your rate.
Else?
We still have a few more slides, sir. If we can.
Sure.
All
Ms.
right.
Newton, is that anything additional?
I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Continue on, Director Maloney.
Thank you, sir. The last slide I have, and then I'm going to turn it over to General Manager Ansel. The change to the budget book is shown on page 69 as it was printed. Was the solid waste and collection section there was at 35,043,386, and proposed would be 34,500,386. So it's a $500,000 cut from our original request, and that still includes the staffing we requested, and the next request we'll have from General Manager Ansel coming up with Lower Richland drop center. Thank you, John.
So you recognize.
Good evening, Council. Next slide, please. Before we touch on the Lower Richland Drop Center, we had recently had a Code of Ordinance, Chapter 12, that has gone through Council and been approved. One of the things that we had written into the ordinance, so County Council could be more involved in our process, would be to provide a master rate schedule every year for county approval. So you would be well aware of what the rates are, any changes to those rates, and then we would have that approved by council for it to be enacted in Richland County. So what we have provided on this slide is the FY23 rate schedule. The first couple that you will see will be curbside collection fees. We have the current rate as of today, and then we have the proposed rate that Director Maloney has been talking about. And Ms. Barron, specific to you, the disability backyard service, that is indicated at the current rate with no additional fees. That service is a courtesy provided by Richland County in conjunction with the contractor serving that area. But if you go down through the list, you will see what we are charging for disposal, land clearing debris, mattresses, tires, e-waste, and going on down the line. This information will be provided to you for review and ultimately approval. One of the things that we have to always do in our business, because our business changes rapidly, is we always have to be looking for continual improvement. What can we be doing differently? What can we be doing better? Are there options out there that didn't exist a year ago? Just a few of the things that we are looking at right now. And this also came about with Chapter 12. We gave the approval to any contractor working in Richland County the use of an automated collection vehicle. And an automated collection vehicle is essentially a one-man operation. We routinely meet with our contractors. We routinely hear one of their biggest concerns and one of their biggest issues is staffing. An automated collection vehicle will take 3 persons from a truck to 1 person in a truck. Okay, there are currently 1 truck right now that is operating in Richland County, and they're having great success with that. One of the more important things to myself and the contractors that use these vehicles is safer operation. We no longer have gentlemen on the back of a truck going down the highway. When you're dealing with an automated collection vehicle, the driver is always on the same side as the can. So there's no reason for the driver to be on the opposite side of the vehicle. putting himself or herself in harm's way with oncoming traffic. The only downside we have to that right now is we're going to have some roll cart damage. We have a lot of older roll carts out in Richland County. Those are going to be damaged periodically over time until everything is dialed in, but we will be replacing those as needed. We talk about improvement again. We're looking at drop centers. Currently, we talk about Lower Richland more specifically, and we'll see the map on the next page. Lower Richland right now is located at 10531 Garner's Ferry Road, which is a 4-lane highway just past Mr. Bunky's for those that is familiar with it. It's a very small site in size. It's about 0.7 acres in operating area, 1.1 acres overall. It's very congested, very poorly laid out, and we're trying to put a lot of services in a very small area. It serves a purpose. It just doesn't serve the purpose very well. There have been conversations through the years, I know prior to me being here, about drop centers, new locations. So what we were able to find on the next page, please. Oh, there it is. The county does own property at the intersection of Air Base Road and Lower Richland Boulevard. It's a large tract of land that currently houses the Richland County Magistrate's office. What we were looking at, again, with council approval, was using a portion of the land north of the magistrate's office on the other side of the power line. In the map that you see there, that's 14 acres that's separated off. And why we did that was just to outline where the power line is between the two buildings, which would be the magistrate's office and what we are looking at. Ideally, we would be looking at approximately 5 acres for a new drop center. And we would be able to take Lower Richland Drop Center, relocate it from where it is there, and provide a better service to the citizens of Richland County. We can give them more room to operate. We can provide more services down there. We can make it more in line with the drop center at the landfill. And we have a number of complaints in that area for illegal dumping. We hope this can eliminate some of that. We can give them the place to take the material, hoping it won't end up on the side of the road where we have to deal with it later. So we're looking at that as an option. And more importantly also, it moves the drop center 5 miles closer to our residents. Out at Garner's Ferry, as far out as we are, we're getting really close to the county line. We're going to come 5 miles closer. We're going to be bringing the drop center to more of our residents and taking that drop center off a really busy 4-lane highway. So we will be providing that information in an upcoming A&F meeting. And just to summarize, a couple things we have talked about today.
And so if I may just interrupt you, Mr. Pugh. Okay. All right. Well, we'll continue on. And then I guess once you finish your presentation, Mr. Pugh, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We have updated the Chapter 12 Code of Ordinance, as we had mentioned, that has passed through County Council and been approved. We talked about seeking council approval for solid waste rates and fees for every fiscal year. The new contract terms, which are underway, we've currently negotiated with Area 1. We are now working on the other contract areas. A couple important things to mention about the new contract amendments. We've created a penalty structure based on the hollow report card, which will give solid waste and recycling more enforcement capacity over the services that are not being rendered. The contract time has been cut to 5 years guaranteed to 3 years guaranteed, with 2 one-year renewables. The 1-year renewable periods will be based on service. If they're not providing good service, the county's not going to be saddled with 2 additional guaranteed years. We did talk about eliminating the rear load truck requirement and allowing the automation. And all of our new contract amendments will eliminate the fuel surcharge. We are talking about moving contract area lines for poor performance. We have one in the works as we speak. And we have talked about the increased staffing at solid waste and recycling. That information is available in the budget book.
Thank you. Mr. Pugh, you recognize, and then after Mr. Pugh, Ms. Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Maloney and General Manager Ansel. I certainly understand the staffing shortages. I'm sure anybody that that's continuing to work on a daily basis here understands that across the country we're dealing with staffing shortages. But will it be any additional cost to our current providers who provide good service when we move to our automatic collectors trucks? Is this going to affect the entire county, or is this in specific areas?
Automation is not a requirement, Mr. Pugh. Excuse me. It's simply in addition to. If the contractor is interested in providing the automated service, we're just simply as a county allowing them to do that. There was a provision in the old ordinance to just prevent automation of any kind. So someone who has an existing rear load truck, they're not out of the game. They can certainly perform the services they perform today at the current rates. It will not affect them. So no, sir, it is not a requirement in any way, shape, or form, simply another alternative for those who choose to use it.
And one more question, please.
Well, before you ask that question, Mr. Pugh, I think Director Maloney wanted to add to your first question.
Just in support of that answering your question, when we bid these out and we were looking at people bringing in lots of automation, they looked at a lot of the streets, whether it be dirt roads or the highways, the higher speed roads, that they would still continue to have a certain amount of their fleet to be rear load in any event. But I guess the point is some of our best contractors may never automate, and that's totally fine with the requirements in the contract and the county ordinance.
And one last question, Mr. How does this affect those backyard services with only one person on the truck when we go to automated services?
That could be one of those issues where a rear load truck would be the preferred method for collecting those neighborhoods. When we're talking about backyard service, Mr. Pugh, we're looking at roughly 4,175 customers out of the 90,231 we service. So it would be an acceptable way to collect with using rear load in that event.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Newton, and then Mr. Malinowski and Ms. Mackey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Maloney, a few questions, and actually first, thank you for your thoughtfulness about your entire presentation and for acknowledging the vast amount of dumping that we are seeing around Mr. Bunky's and in other areas across the county. So a few questions. First, from a process perspective, the recommendation about relocating the Lower Richland drop-off center, you said it's something that's going to go before A&F?
As a cost, we presume, but we would let administration direct us in the right committee, whether it's DNS because it is a change in service, or the cost and the land owned by the county. It would go to the appropriate committee.
Gotcha. Well, from a process perspective, that the recommendation will go through a committee. So thank you. And then just two things on that front. If you had that expanded footprint, do you envision that it would then be able to accept mattresses and or tires?
Yes, ma'am, both. That would be one of the key things. We're seeing a lot of mattresses in along the highways and off the highways in Lower Richland, and we think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that we don't take mattresses all but way up in the north of the county up Monticello Road. So it's a long hike to get them up there, and this would provide a second service in Lower Richland.
Thank you. And then my final question is actually not about the landfill per se, but as you look at the budget that you're proposing, are there, and I may have missed it, any extra dollars looking at enforcement in terms of trying to prevent some of the illegal dumping and litter that we're seeing?
With the with the complement of 8 collection inspectors, we think, not nighttime, they won't be working at night, but so I don't know about, I can say prevention. We think that the most important thing for prevention is providing a service where there's an alternative to go 5 miles out of the way to dump at a roadside where, we're now closer to more of the population and with that site that was shown. And, to plug it a little bit more, we looked at the plans, the neighborhood planning done by community development and planning. And It's outside of that, so it's a great spot, being outside of a kind of a to the south of kind of a development area that's planned to grow in the future, and just being close to everything is probably more of the complement of stopping illegal dumping than the inspectors I mentioned before. But having those folks out in the field would certainly help identify them early as compared to waiting for residents to have to turn those in.
Thank you.
Mr. Malinowski and then Ms. Mackey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Maloney, just to add a comment for Ms. Newton's question that you just responded to, as far as having inspectors can identify the dumping out there sooner than later and working during the day only. Well, I don't think there's anybody out there dumping during the daylight hours. So I don't, and to identify it, it doesn't take a genius to go by and identify it at any point in the day. So I'm not sure these inspectors are really beneficial the way they're going to be used from what you're saying. That's just my comment on that. If the other part is, we've got all this information here on Lower Richland and moving from Mr. Bunky's and everything else here and using this property. I have been asking for years and years, prior to you even maybe thinking about working for Richland County, about a Northwest site, because I'm constantly getting bombarded by those questions. We constantly have a lot of illegal dumping up there for the reason that they don't even have drop bins like down there at Bunky's. Yet I keep being told, yeah, we're looking into it, we're looking into it. I haven't seen anything happen. So to continue to put money in one area and not another, I think is using the taxpayer funds somewhat in a biased way. You got any comment on that?
May respond, Mr. Director Maloney.
Yes, sir. When I first started, I looked at a plan that showed an outlay that included Lower Richland. Well, at the time, it didn't really call it relocation, but an improvement for Lower Richland Drop Center. And then within 2 years, something up in the Ballantyne area. So it was always staged to start here in the next biennium. It was staged that was a plan that Public Works had some time ago.
10 years ago, right? And they're still waiting up there for it,
sir.
All right. My other questions are: didn't we just have an increase in rates? Was it last year?
The last rate increase was in October of 2020. So, and then this one would presumably be 2 years later. So,
what was that percentage? Do you recall? About
10%, I believe.
It was 10%.
Yes, sir.
And now we want another 8.3%.
Yes, sir.
Seems like an awful lot. Do we have any, I didn't see anything here, and I believe you maybe have given it to the council in the past, but how these rates compare to the other municipalities, to the other counties that surround us and or municipalities where people are either paying private companies or going to a drop site like up there in Chapin, for example. Have we got any figures on that?
These rates are in line with Lexington County rates where citizens are paying directly to a hauler.
Okay, that's something we need to see. So when the people are calling in and telling us that, hey, in 2 years have upped our fees 18.5% or 18.3%, they're correct. We have upped them, but what are they getting for it then? Also, in the, maybe Mr. Ansell, this is your question, but the automated collection trucks, who pays for those, the haulers or the county?
Yes, sir. The contractor is responsible for the purchase of the vehicle.
Okay, then if the contractor pays, and from what you're saying, it reduces the number of employees they need, does that put us in any better bargaining position to get lower rates, or is it just a matter of, hey, we paid to get the new truck and paid more money, and so?
Solicited the information from the contractors. And at the last bid process, when Solid Waste had put forth the bid for Area 1, 3, and 6, those rates did have a reduction based on an automated service.
The private contractors or private haulers in other counties, There's absolutely no tax that goes towards collections. Is there in any other counties that we border?
They may also have a millage, and then the citizens are, they'll have a bid out contractor that you can choose from that one contractor, and whether you want pickup or not. And you contract and complain, if you have a problem with that contractor directly for instance, Lexington County.
Okay, and I think you're addressing the actual problems with your reductions or moving the lines here, but it's going to be kind of tough for some of these people, and you're well aware of how many people that I've sent you that it's constantly over and over the same ones not getting their trash picked up. It's going to be kind of tough for them to swallow another increase. I hope you're going to answer to those people, and you might even want to send them a letter ahead of time. While we haven't been serving you properly now, you've got the privilege to pay us more to try and do it better again.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, I think Mr. Malinowski will probably bring you to the next community meeting and have you explain.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Mackey, you're recognized.
Thank you. On your recommendation summary where you talk about moving contract area lines for poor performance, how is that impacting the other areas?
Okay, what that will simply do is, it will take an area that is underserved by current contracts, and we'll have the boundaries moved, and we will allot those homes to a better performing contractor. So it is going to be rewarding someone that does a great job and penalizing someone that is not performing as indicated by the contracts.
So when you make that shift, I guess, are you evaluating up front that current contractor who's doing a good job can put on any type of remediation plan, I guess, where they're like, hey, if you do this good in your smaller area for 6 months, then you get something back. I guess what I'm asking. So does it ever come back to them, or pretty much they continue with their smaller area?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Okay.
Sir, may I add to that?
Yes, you may, Director Maloney.
Yeah, the intention is, and we're looking at a slide where it's going to occur, and it would have occurred by now, except one of those other considerations are getting adequate trucks in, and that is very slow right now as far as getting working trucks from delivered. But it is going to happen very soon, and it is meant to be permanent. We're going to be shifting 1,800 customers from to a high-performing contractor, and we had to have that to make sure that they could carry that out and stay high-performing as well. The poor-performing contractor has already been on notice, and so it's that final measure type of situation where you've already have a correction plan, but it's really not. They're not correcting. And so it's the one where we're going to be changing contractors.
Right, and then Ms. Barron.
Just to follow up to Ms. Mackey's question, they will do the, I think you said 3-year evaluation or annual evaluation to help determine regarding their performance.
Yes, ma'am. It would be, the contracts would be stated as, it would be 3 years guaranteed service. And then the next 2 years would be renewables based on a satisfactory service.
With a follow-up to my colleague, Mr. Malinowski's question.
Ms. McBride, before you go to your follow-up, I believe Director Maloney wanted to add to the response given by Mr. Ansel to your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sure.
And I just wanted to add briefly that all the contracts have a clause to fire a contractor with notice. So is it 30 or 60?
30 days.
30-day notice. So that's not very feasible in this business to do that, so that someone else could take it over. But just to say that it's guaranteed for 3 years, it is with adequate service, satisfactory service.
A 30-day notice? No probation. Oh, that's tough. All right. You mentioned that there would be, you're requesting 3 customer service reps. So it would be the responsibilities of those customer service reps to ensure that the pickups are being made appropriately, and maybe that will address, Mr. Malinowski, some of your concerns, our concerns.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. The customer service reps would be at the landfill, answering calls and directing staff in the field, not directing, but relaying information to them. It's the collection inspectors that would be out, being the eyes and ears, checking up on the contractors. That's who I mentioned with, also illegal dumps, but they'll be out circulating all the routes, so they'll see a lot of things, but that wouldn't be their primary duty. It would be the collection contractors keeping an eye on what's going on in the field.
But tell me this, we get numerous complaints, and I want to thank you because you have really done a good job in responding to the calls, both of you. So if we're getting these complaints, and I've got one area that I know I get long emails every week about mattresses and everything that are out there. So if a customer does not call in to let you know that the mattress is out there, what type of checks are you doing periodically so that our streets and roads won't be piled up with mattresses and other debris?
Ma'am, right now, we are so, for lack of a better way to say it, inadequately staffed that we don't have the resources to put people out to just patrol. The advent of these 6 additional positions will give us the ability to have eyes on it literally on a daily basis. And what we are asking for is 6 plus the 2 we have to assign to each of the 8 collections areas.
It would be well worth it if you could help us clean some of our streets up. And the last one, Mr. Chair. With code enforcement. All right, we have the sheriff's code enforcement, and Mr. Brown may have to help me with this. Are there 2 other offices within the county that has code enforcement, or this is the only other code enforcement?
So the collection inspectors are not code enforcement, but we do have refuse control officers that we have 3 positions at the landfill at this time, and they do code enforcement.
They're not called code enforcement. I saw code enforcement.
It's of Chapter 12 for solid waste. So taking care of the
Are they certified as code enforcement officers?
By the yes.
Okay, so they're certified as code enforcement. So Mr. Brown, we have those 3. And then we, of course, the sheriff does the code enforcement, and there's another area of code enforcement.
We do have a couple of departments that have code enforcement officers, but they are specific to the services that office performs, such as animal care services. You have code enforcement officers there, but they would not be, related to solid waste. You have community planning and development. They may have some individuals in there related to building inspections and things of that nature. So in general, when we say code enforcement, it is specific to the area of responsibility that those departments or that those agencies respond to. Thank you.
Else, Mr. Brown? Okay, Ms. Barron, Mr. Malinowski, and then Ms. Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did just wanted to follow up a question from Ms. Mackey as it relates to contractors and poor performance. Should a contractor be cited for poor performance and a portion of their service area is taken away from them, when it comes time for rebidding and to submit a contract or bid for an extension, how does that poor performance play into the awarding process?
This is a poor performer that lost some area, and we're at a point where we're rebidding. We just had a scenario kind of like that, and the contractor that we indicated that we're not going to renew with did not bid on the area because they realized that they wouldn't be selected. So that would be my impression of how it would actually play out. But if they did bid, they would likely have a very low score.
Just to follow up, Mr. Chair, I would like to, for us to give a little more thought to that, because just being a business owner, many times, perhaps that particular contractor may think that, hey, I did a fine job, something's wrong with Richland County. And then when they come back to the table, we need to have something, I think, in place that says, sure, that they may score low, but we're scoring them on what they submit. And if we're not putting in any information that is evaluating their past performance and taking weight there, I think that we could very well end up with a poor performer that scored high. Because, in the nature of business, it's about how you present the package. And so I would like for us just to be a little more thoughtful in that process so that we are prepared for any scenario that may come up. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Barron. Mr. Malinowski and Ms. Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd first like to echo Councilwoman McBride's comments about Director Maloney's efforts to address all of the complaints that have come in. He's done an excellent job in responding to them and trying to resolve those as well in a positive way. And I'm glad you got your haircut for the meeting here. It looks good. What I would like to also know is, I believe Mr. Ansell said that with these new inspectors, they would be out and about throughout the day, throughout the whole county, be able to observe more illegally dumped areas or items. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. It would be inevitable that if these places are out there, they will be stumbling across them throughout the course of the day, whether they are looking at compliant piles or non-compliant piles, meeting with residents, or simply shadowing a contractor. They'd be covering a lot of territory.
But what I'm wondering is if possibly in the contracts that we begin to let, we can't just make it a requirement for the haulers. Talk about somebody that's throughout the county, throughout every area of the county every day as they're doing it, that if they see something, that it's required for them to report it to us. And that could probably even give us better eyes out there throughout the county than some inspectors who are just shadowing the hauler anyway.
It's not unusual to get a call from a route supervisor that will indicate such a thing. Yes, sir.
But I'm saying make it part of the contract. They're required to do it.
Understood.
Thank you.
Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a few questions, and one, echoing the comments about how helpful your staff has been trying to deal with these issues, which come in really, truly every day. Just for the benefit of everyone here who might not have that experience, I was wondering, Mr. Maloney, my first question is if you could just paint a picture of how much time your staff is having to spend now chasing down some of these hauler issues and vendor issues that we're having that's stopping them from doing their regular jobs.
We have, thank you, ma'am, for the question. We have General Manager Ansell here, Assistant General Manager Christopher, and Ms. Castelluccio, our Collections Manager, and then our customer service folks. They're communicating with me many nights, most nights till 9 p.m. So knowing they're coming in 8 a.m. Or before, that's what they're doing all day. So, at least 12-hour days, sometimes, often six days a week, at least 5. And they are not, they realize there's more that they could be doing programmatically. We need some customer service help, and we need the people in the field. Ms. Castelluccio is driving around the county herself to make up for the fact that we do only have 2 other employees that can do that, and it's making for some long days and some missed opportunities of things that we know that she could be doing. So I appreciate the question, but we think the request we have in here that again is in this budget book will cover a great improvement for our staff and for the citizens of Richland County.
Thank you. And then just two more questions. As you look at increasing, staffing, are there any plans in your current budget to increase the hours of operations at our existing drop-off centers?
Mr. Ansel, answer that.
Ms. Newton, currently, as we sit here today, we do not have plans for additional operating hours. It is not that it is something that we don't want to provide. We are having a tremendous amount of difficulty finding people to fill those roles.
Okay. So at present, no, the hours are going to remain the same.
That is correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then just a final quick question, looking at the budget, I know how we are having this increased staff who's going to be able to patrol the county and walk around or drive around and see issues. Is there any funding in your budget right now that might be looking at things like increased cameras or something like that for some of those areas where we know people like to dump, where they are doing it in the dead of night and not when your team is going to be driving around?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. That money is already there. That money is being utilized for that purpose. We get fortunate on occasion, and we are able to capture images that are useful. In some cases, our cameras are stolen, but they are deployed, and we do try and take advantage of that technology. Like someone had mentioned here tonight, Mr. Malinowski, I believe it was, they don't do this in the middle of the day, nor do they leave incriminating evidence behind that will lead us to them. So we have to be as crafty as they are, and sometimes they're a little bit better at it than we are.
Thank you. That's my last question.
Additional questions? Discussion from the body. All right, there being none. Anything else from you, Director Maloney, or you, Mr. Ansel?
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Brown, anything else from you or your team?
Clerk, if you could put that item up on the screen for those who are participating electronically. I just wanted to remind everyone here and those who are also watching this from afar that we do have a public hearing that is scheduled related to the budget. And we wanted you to know that on the county's website, as well as via this announcement and others that we will make, that members of the public have an opportunity to provide input in a number of ways. Certainly they can sign up. And we're asking you to do that, if you will, electronically. Let us know that you would like to participate in this process. And what we will do is we will take that information down and have you scheduled to participate. You can participate either by emailing your comments, which will be held for the record. You can provide your name so that you can come and sign up and participate and vocally give your comments, or you can provide your comments in writing to the clerk's office, again, and you can utilize this email to do so. So all those methods are methods you can use to participate in the public hearing process. Again, this information is available via our website. We will publish this information in other methods, but we want to take a moment, Mr. Chair, members of council, to let citizens know how they can engage in this process. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Brown, just to confirm, and I want to ask while it's on my mind, but I believe the public hearing for the fiscal year 2023 budget, it's May the 17th?
I believe it's May 19th.
May 19th instead, okay. Got it. Want to see if you knew.
Well, I have a folks, Mr. Chair, kind of like you do, to have your back. So yes, sir, we know. Yes, sir.
Any additional questions for Mr. Brown? Anyone on his team? Okay. There being none, entertain a motion. You made the motion, Mr. Malinowski? All right, been properly second. Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Malinowski?
Yes.
Pugh?
Yes.
McBride?
Yes.
Livingston?
Yes.
Teratio?
Yes.
Barron?
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English, Newton.
Yes.
Yes, for English.
Motion approved.
We adjourned.
We got